Admiral Lisa Cortez read the distress signal 3 times. She was a woman of 52 years, with gray streaks in her dark hair, and lines on her face that came from years of difficult decisions. She had served in the United Earth Coalition Navy for 30 years. She had seen many things, but this message made her hands shake. The words described cities burning, children being taken from their parents, a peaceful civilization being crushed under the boot of conquerors, and at the end, a simple plea. If anyone can hear this, please help us. We have no one else to turn to. Cortez walked to her window and looked out at Earth below. The planet was beautiful, covered in blue oceans and green lands. Her people had come so far. They had survived wars and plagues and disasters. They had reached the stars and joined a community of alien species. They were still new to the galaxy, still small compared to the great powers. Her aide, a young man named Lieutenant Greg Palmer, entered the office. "Admiral, the council representatives are asking about the signal. They want to know how we will respond." "What do the other council members say?" Cortez asked. Palmer looked uncomfortable. "They say this is not our concern. The Valorians are far from Earth. We have no treaties with them. Several representatives suggest we stay out of it." Cortez turned away from the window. Her eyes were hard. "My grandfather told me stories when I was a child. He told me about a city called Warsaw, where people were taken away while the world watched and did nothing. He told me about a place called Rwanda, where thousands died because no one came to help. He told me that the greatest evil is not the cruelty of bad people, but the silence of good ones." He knew that look in the Admiral's eyes. Cortez picked up her communicator. "Get me General Kevin Martinez at Earth Command. Tell him it is urgent." General Martinez was a broad-shouldered man, with a shaved head and a calm voice. He had commanded ground forces for 20 years, and had never lost a soldier he did not mourn. When Cortez explained the situation, he listened without interrupting. "The Council will not support this," he said when she finished. "We could lose ships. We could lose soldiers, for a species we have never met." "I know," Cortez said. "But I keep thinking about what we will become if we turn away. I keep thinking about what kind of species we want to be." Martinez was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. "I will call for volunteers. This mission will be for those who choose to go, not those who are ordered." 6 hours later, the carrier Defiant began preparing for departure. She was the pride of the Earth fleet, a massive vessel carrying fighters, shuttles, and 1,200 Marines. 3 destroyers would accompany her: the Valor, the Resolve, and the Thunder. In the hangar bay of the Defiant, Captain Daniel Reyes stood before his company of Marines. Reyes was 35 years old, with brown skin and dark eyes that had seen too much combat. He had joined the Marines at 18 and had never regretted it. His soldiers trusted him with their lives. "I am going to be honest with you," Reyes said. His voice was steady and clear. "This mission is not required. You can walk away right now, and no one will think less of you. The Valorians are strangers. Their world is not our world. Their people are not our people." He paused and looked at the faces before him. Young men and women from every part of Earth. Some were barely out of training. Others had served for decades. But they are people. They are mothers and fathers, sons and daughters. They are being killed and enslaved by an enemy they cannot fight, and every other power in the galaxy has turned their backs on them. Reyes took a deep breath. "I am going, because I believe that what we do for strangers shows who we really are. I am going because I could not live with myself if I stayed behind. If any of you feel the same way, raise your hand." Every hand in the room went up. On the bridge of the Defiant, Commander Samantha Burke began calculating the jump coordinates. Burke was the ship's executive officer, a woman with red hair and freckles, who had graduated top of her class at the Naval Academy. Her navigator, Lieutenant Eric Santos, worked beside her. The jump will take 31 hours, Santos said. We will arrive with less than 12 hours before the deadline. It will be close, but we will make it. The 4 ships of the human fleet powered up their engines. All across Earth, people watched the news feeds and wondered what would happen. Many thought it was foolish to risk human lives for aliens they had never met. But many others felt something stir in their hearts. Pride, perhaps, or hope. Admiral Cortez stood on the bridge of the Defiant as the ship prepared to jump. She thought about what they were about to do. 4 ships against an armada of 60. 2,000 humans against an empire of conquerors. The odds were impossible. But Cortez knew something about her species that the rest of the galaxy did not understand. Humans did not calculate odds the way other species did. When humans saw someone in trouble, they did not ask if helping was safe or smart. They simply helped. It was built into their nature, written in their history, carved into their hearts. We are receiving a message from the Sinfari Collective. They are asking why we are deploying to Valoria Prime. Cortez smiled grimly. Tell them we are going because someone has to. The 4 ships jumped into hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. In the swirling tunnel of light that carried them across the galaxy, the soldiers and sailors of the United Earth Coalition checked their weapons, wrote letters to loved ones, and prepared themselves for battle. Captain Reyes sat alone in his quarters and looked at a photograph of his daughter. She was 7 years old, with his eyes and her mother's smile. He had promised her he would come home. He intended to keep that promise. But he also knew that some things were more important than coming home. Staff Sergeant Nicole Vega gathered her squad in the mess hall. She was a small woman with muscles built from years of combat training and eyes that missed nothing. Her squad was young, but she had trained them well. When we land down there, Vega said, we are going to see things that make us angry. We are going to see innocent people being hurt. I need you to use that anger. I need you to turn it into strength. We are not just soldiers today. We are the only hope those people have. 31 hours passed. The ships emerged from hyperspace above a beautiful world of crystal cities and purple oceans. And above that world, blocking out the light of its twin suns, the massive fleet of the Krath Dominion waited. Commander Burke looked at the sensor readings. 60 enemy ships against their 4. Thousands of enemy fighters against their hundreds. It was exactly as bad as they had feared. Admiral, she said quietly, your orders. Cortez stood tall. Her voice was steady. Open a channel to the Krath commander. Let them know that the humans have arrived. Warlord Draven sat in his command throne and stared at the sensor display with confusion. 4 ships had just emerged from hyperspace. 4 tiny vessels compared to his mighty armada. He had heard of this species called humans, but he had never taken them seriously. They were young, weak, and far from home. What could they possibly hope to accomplish? Open a channel, Draven commanded. I want to speak to whoever leads this foolish expedition. The view screen flickered and showed him a human female with gray-streaked hair and hard eyes. She wore a military uniform and stood with her shoulders back and her chin raised. She did not look afraid. I am Admiral Lisa Cortez of the United Earth Coalition, the human said. You will withdraw your forces from Valoria Prime immediately. This is not a request. Draven laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through his bridge. His officers laughed with him. 4 ships, he said, when he finished laughing. You bring 4 ships against 60, and you dare to give me orders? You humans are either very brave or very stupid. Perhaps both, Cortez replied. Her expression did not change. But we are here and we are not leaving. The Valorians are under our protection now. Your protection? Draven leaned forward. You are nothing. Your species is nothing. You have no power here. Then you have nothing to fear from us, Cortez said calmly. Withdraw your forces, and we will let you leave peacefully. Stay, and you will discover what humans are capable of. Draven felt anger rise in his chest. No one spoke to him this way. No one challenged the might of the Krath Dominion. He would teach these humans a lesson they would never forget. Launch fighters toward the refugee camps, he ordered his officers. Let the humans watch as we burn their precious Valorians. Then, we will destroy their pathetic fleet and add their homeworld to our empire. 40 Krath fighters screamed down through the atmosphere toward the largest refugee camp outside Athon. Thousands of Valorians huddled there, waiting for death. They had heard that ships had arrived, but they did not believe anyone would save them. The galaxy had already abandoned them. They did not know about the drop pods falling through the sky behind the Krath fighters. Captain Daniel Reyes felt his stomach lurch as the drop pod broke through the clouds. Through the small window, he can see the ground rushing up toward him. He can see the Krath fighters in the distance, getting closer to the refugee camp. He could see the smoke rising from burning cities. All units, prepare for impact, he said into his communicator. We hit the ground running. Form defensive lines between the Krath and the civilians. Do not let a single enemy fighter reach those refugees. The drop pods slammed into the earth like meteors. Marines burst out of them before the dust had settled, rifles in their hands and determination in their eyes. They ran toward the refugee camp, their boots pounding against the purple grass of Valoria Prime. The Valorians in the camp heard the explosions and thought the end had come. But then they saw something they did not expect. Beings running toward them, not away from them. Beings taking positions between them and the approaching enemy. Beings in strange armor, with weapons raised, ready to fight. Hera was in that camp. She watched the humans form their defensive lines and felt something she had not felt in days. Hope. The Krath fighters opened fire. Plasma bolts rained down on the human positions. The ground exploded around them, but the Marines did not run. They held their ground and fired back, their rifles sending streams of bullets into the sky. Staff Sergeant Nicole Vega saw a Krath fighter diving toward a group of Valorian children. She raised her shoulder-mounted missile launcher and fired. The missile streaked through the air and struck the fighter in its engine. The enemy craft exploded in a ball of flame and crashed into an empty field. "Move the children to cover," Vega shouted to her squad. "Keep those fighters off them." The Krath pilots had never seen anything like this. They had attacked countless worlds, and every species had run from them. Every species had surrendered or died screaming. But these humans stood and fought. These humans threw themselves into danger to protect strangers. One Krath pilot swooped low, ready to strafe a line of refugees. A human marine named Private Carlos Mendez ran directly into his path, firing his rifle at the cockpit. The bullets cracked the canopy, causing the pilot to pull up and miss his target. Mendez was hit by the backwash of the engines and thrown to the ground, but he got back up. He always got back up. In orbit, the battle was even more intense. The 4 human ships faced the full might of the Krath fleet. Admiral Cortez commanded from the bridge of the Defiant, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. "Concentrate fire on their carriers," she ordered. "If we can disable their fighter support, the ground forces will have a chance." The Defiant and her escorts fought with tactics the Krath had never seen. Instead of forming battle lines and exchanging fire like civilized species, the humans darted and weaved through the enemy formation. They used asteroids as cover. They appeared where they were not expected. The destroyer Valor took heavy damage protecting a Valorian civilian transport trying to escape the planet. Her captain, Commander Patricia Lane, refused to move her ship even as fires broke out across multiple decks. "Those civilians reach safety or we die trying," she told her crew. The civilians reached safety. Lieutenant Christopher Dunn was a fighter pilot with only 2 years of experience. When his fighter was hit by enemy fire, he knew he had only seconds before his reactor exploded. He could have ejected. He could have tried to save himself. Instead, he aimed his crippled craft at the bridge of a craft cruiser and pushed his engines to maximum. The explosion destroyed the cruiser and took 2 other craft ships with it. Dunn's sacrifice saved 3 evacuation shuttles filled with Valorian families. By the end of the first engagement, 8 craft ships had been destroyed. The humans had lost the destroyer Thunder and 17 fighters. But the refugee camps were safe, and something had changed in the eyes of those watching from below. Kira's father found her in the camp that night. The craft had pulled back, regrouping for another assault. The humans were still there, standing guard, treating the wounded, sharing their food with refugees. "You were right," Kira said to her father. "You were right about them." Her father nodded slowly. "I read about their history. They have a word for what they are doing. They call it humanity. It means caring for others, even when it costs you everything." A human medic approached them. She was young, with kind eyes and gentle hands. "Are either of you hurt?" she asked. "No," Kira said. "But why? Why did you come? We are nothing to you." The medic looked confused by the question. "You are people," she said simply. "That is enough." Kira did not fully understand, but she was beginning to. On the bridge of his flagship, Warlord Draven stared at the damage reports with fury in his red eyes. 8 ships lost, hundreds of fighters destroyed, and the humans were still there, still fighting, still protecting the Valorians. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are outnumbered. They are outgunned. Why do they not retreat?" None of his officers had an answer. Draven clenched his 4 fists. He would crush these humans. He would make them pay for their arrogance. He would land his ground forces and overwhelm them with numbers they could not match. "Prepare for full planetary assault," he commanded. "Every soldier, every weapon, everything we have. I want those humans dead and the Valorians in chains by the end of the week." The real battle was just beginning. Warlord Draven landed 30,000 soldiers on Valoria Prime. They came in massive transport ships that darkened the sky, carrying tanks, artillery, and weapons designed to break entire cities. The ground shook under the weight of the Krath army as it marched toward the last free city on the planet. Captain Daniel Reyes watched them coming from the walls of Aethan. He had 1,200 Marines to defend a city of 2 million Valorians. The numbers were impossible. Any military academy in the galaxy would call this a lost cause. But Reyes had never believed in lost causes. "We hold this city," he told his officers. "We hold it until reinforcements arrive. We hold it until every last one of us is down. The Krath do not get these people. Not today, not ever." The siege of Aethan began on a cold morning under gray clouds. Krath artillery opened fire first, sending shells screaming into the outer districts of the city. Buildings that had stood for thousands of years crumbled into dust. The beautiful crystal towers that the Valorians had built with such care shattered like glass. But the humans were ready. Staff Sergeant Vega led her squad through the streets, setting up defensive positions in every building, every alley, every corner. She knew they could not stop the Krath with firepower alone. They had to be smarter. They had to make the enemy pay for every inch of ground. "Remember your training," she told her soldiers. "Move fast, hit hard, disappear before they can hit back. We are ghosts in this city. We are everywhere and nowhere." The first Krath assault came at noon. 5,000 soldiers charged toward the eastern gate, expecting to sweep aside the defenders and pour into the city. They were met by a wall of gunfire from positions they could not see. Human snipers picked off officers. Human missiles destroyed tanks. Human grenades turned the advance into chaos. The Krath pulled back after losing 300 soldiers. They had not even reached the gate. Warlord Draven raged aboard his command ship. "How is this possible? They are so few." His generals had no answers. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had never faced resistance like this. The humans fought like demons, appearing from shadows, striking without warning, then vanishing before the Krath could respond. Days passed. The siege continued. The Krath attacked again and again, and each time the humans threw them back. But the cost was terrible. Marines fell every day. Ammunition ran low. Supplies grew scarce. Corporal Brandon Hayes had an idea that changed everything. He was a young man from a small town who had never expected to be a soldier. But war had a way of finding hidden strengths in ordinary people. "The Valorians want to help," he told Captain Reyes. "They are not fighters, but they want to do something. Let me teach them." Reyes looked at the young corporal for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Do it." Hayes gathered Valorian volunteers in a warehouse near the center of the city. There were hundreds of them, young and old, male and female. They had never held weapons in their lives. Their hands shook with fear. "I know you are scared," Hayes said. "I was scared too, the first time I picked up a rifle. But being scared does not mean you cannot fight. It means you have something worth fighting for." He showed them how to load and fire. He showed them how to take cover, how to move, how to work together. The Valorians learned quickly. They had spent their whole lives learning. This was just a different kind of lesson. Kira was among the volunteers. She held the rifle in her silver hands and felt its weight. It was heavy, but not as heavy as the fear she had carried since the Krath arrived. "Why are you doing this?" she asked Hayes. "Why do you care what happens to us?" Hayes thought about the question. Back on Earth, we have a saying. When bad things happen and good people do nothing, then the bad people win. I do not want to be someone who does nothing. On the 7th day of the siege, hope arrived from the stars. Admiral Cortez had been fighting in orbit for a week, keeping the Krath fleet busy while waiting for reinforcements. She had lost the destroyer Valor. She had lost hundreds of sailors and pilots, but she had held the line. When 3 more Earthships jumped into the system, she felt tears in her eyes. The carrier Resolution led the relief force, accompanied by 2 heavy cruisers. They struck the Krath fleet from behind, catching them by surprise. The orbital battle turned from a desperate defense into an actual fight. "Push them back," Cortez ordered. "Clear a path for supply drops to the surface." For the first time in a week, supplies reached the defenders of Aethon. Food, medicine, ammunition, and most importantly, 200 fresh Marines. But the Krath were not finished. Warlord Draven knew he was running out of time. Word was spreading across the galaxy about what the humans were doing. Other species were starting to pay attention. He needed to crush this resistance before it inspired others. He ordered his generals to launch the largest assault yet. Every soldier, every tank, every weapon, all aimed at the city of Aethon. The assault came on the morning of the 11th day. Sergeant Anthony Russo stood at a mountain pass north of the city. The pass was the only route through the mountains, and thousands of Valorian refugees were using it to escape to safety. Russo had 7 Marines to hold the pass. "This is where we stand," he told his squad. "Nothing gets through. Nothing." The Krath sent 500 soldiers to take the pass. Russo and his Marines held them off for 6 hours. They fought from behind rocks and trees. They fought hand to hand when their ammunition ran out. They fought until their bodies could not fight anymore. When relief forces finally reached the pass, only Russo and 1 other Marine were still standing. Both were wounded. Both were barely conscious. But the pass was still in human hands. 3,000 Valorian refugees had escaped through it during those 6 hours. Medic Laura Chen worked in the city hospital without sleep for 48 hours straight. She treated humans and Valorians alike, moving from bed to bed, doing everything she could to save lives. Her hands were steady, even when her body was exhausted. "You need to rest," another medic told her. "I will rest when everyone is safe." Until then, there is work to do. A Valorian mother brought her injured child to Chen. The little girl had been hurt in a building collapse. She was crying, scared, and in pain. Chen knelt beside her and smiled gently. "You are going to be okay," Chen said. "I promise." She worked on the child for an hour, carefully treating every wound. When she was finished, the little girl was sleeping peacefully. The mother looked at Chen with tears streaming down her silver face. "Thank you," the mother whispered. "You saved her." "That is what we do," Chen said simply. As the 11th day ended, the defenders of Athon still held the city. They were battered, bloody, and exhausted. But they had not broken, they had not surrendered, they had not given up. And on the morning of the 12th day, the sky filled with ships. Not craft ships, ships from Earth, more than anyone had expected. And behind them, other ships. Synthari ships. Celestine ships. Even Morduan ships. The galaxy had finally responded, and they were coming to stand with the humans. The sky above Valoria Prime had never held so many ships. They came from across the galaxy, jumping into the system, one after another. Earth ships led the way, but they were not alone anymore. The Synthari Collective had sent 12 warships. The Celestine Federation had deployed their fastest cruisers. Even the Morduan Empire, who had sworn to stay neutral, had sent a battle group. On the bridge of his flagship, Warlord Draven watched the sensor displays with growing horror. His armada, which had seemed invincible just weeks ago, was now outnumbered. The hunters had become the hunted. "How is this happening?" he demanded. "The galaxy feared us. No one was supposed to help them." His first officer stood at attention. "The humans changed everything, Warlord. They showed the galaxy that we could be opposed. They showed everyone that we could be defeated." Admiral Cortez received communications from each arriving fleet. The Synthari commander spoke first. "We should have come sooner. We were cowards, but the humans have shamed us into action, and we are here now." The Celestine Admiral said something similar. "Your species has reminded us what courage looks like. We stand with you." Even the Morduan were humble. "The humans have shown us that there are things worth fighting for beyond our own borders. We will not stand aside any longer." Cortez thanked them all, but there was no time for ceremony. The battle was not over yet. On the surface of Valoria Prime, 30,000 Krath soldiers still occupied positions around Athon. They still had tanks and artillery. They still outnumbered the human defenders. General Kevin Martinez landed personally to coordinate the final offensive. He had served in wars across 3 star systems, but he had never seen anything like the Siege of Athon. The Marines who had held this city for 11 days were heroes, every one of them. "We pushed them out today," Martinez told his commanders. "Every Krath soldier off this planet. No exceptions, no mercy for those who do not surrender." The final assault began at dawn. Human Marines advanced from the city walls, supported by Valorian volunteers who had learned to fight over the past week. They moved through the streets in coordinated teams, clearing buildings and pushing the Krath back, block by block. Captain Reyes led the main assault force toward the enemy command post. He had started this battle with 300 Marines in his company. He now had less than 200, but every one of them was ready to finish what they had started. Staff Sergeant Vega moved beside him, her rifle raised and ready. She had not slept in 2 days, but her eyes were sharp and her aim was true. Behind her, the Marines of her squad followed without hesitation. The Krath fought back with everything they had. They knew this was their last chance. If they could not hold Valoria Prime, their empire would be humiliated. Other conquered worlds might rise up. The Dominion might crumble. The battle was brutal. Marines fell on both sides. Tanks exploded. Buildings collapsed. The streets of Athon ran with blood, both red and gray. Vega saw a group of Valorian children trapped in a building that was under attack by Krath soldiers. She did not hesitate. She ran toward the building, firing as she moved, drawing the enemy fire away from the children. "Get them out," she shouted to her squad. "I will hold them." Her soldiers rushed into the building and carried the children to safety. Vega stood alone against a dozen Krath soldiers, her rifle blazing until it ran empty. Then her pistol, then her knife. She took 7 of them down before they overwhelmed her. She died with a smile on her face, knowing the children were safe. Ensign Patrick Cole piloted a combat walker through the heart of the enemy formation. His walker was heavily damaged, leaking fuel and sparking from a dozen hits. His controls were barely responding. But ahead of him was a Krath artillery position that was raining death on the advancing Marines. "Cole, pull back," his commander ordered. "Your walker will not survive another hit." Cole looked at the artillery position. He looked at the Marines dying under its fire. He made his decision. "Negative, sir. I have a clear path to the target." He pushed his walker to maximum speed and drove it directly into the artillery position. The explosion lit up the sky. The guns fell silent. The Marines advanced. Soldiers began surrendering in groups, throwing down their weapons and begging for mercy. The sight of their comrades falling, the sight of humans and Valorians fighting side by side, the sight of fleets from across the galaxy filling the sky above them. It was too much. The will to fight had left them. Warlord Draven refused to surrender. He gathered his personal guard, 300 of his best warriors, and made his final stand at the gates of Aethan. If he was going to die, he would die fighting. Captain Reyes led the assault on the gates. His Marines charged forward under heavy fire, taking cover where they could, advancing step by bloody step. They lost 20 soldiers reaching the gate. They lost 30 more fighting through it. Reyes found himself face to face with Draven in the courtyard beyond the gate. The warlord was massive, towering over the human captain, his forearms holding weapons that could tear Reyes apart in seconds. "You have ruined everything," Draven snarled. "A species of weaklings and fools has destroyed an empire that stood for 1,000 years." Reyes raised his rifle. "We are not weak. We are not fools. We are human." They fought. Draven was stronger and faster, but Reyes was determined and skilled. The battle lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. Reyes was wounded 3 times. He kept fighting. He would not stop. He could not stop. In the end, it was not Reyes who struck the final blow. Kira had followed the Marines into the battle. She carried the rifle that Corporal Hayes had taught her to use. She had never fired it at a living being before today. But when she saw Draven raise his blade to kill Reyes, she did not hesitate. Each shot struck true. Draven fell to his knees, disbelief in his red eyes. He looked at the young Valorian woman who had shot him, this member of a species he had dismissed as weak and helpless. "How?" he whispered. "The humans taught us," Kira said. "They taught us that we could be more than victims." Draven collapsed and did not rise again. The battle for Valoria Prime was over. The Krath Dominion had been defeated. In the days that followed, the galaxy changed forever. The Valorians began building their own defense force, trained by human advisors who volunteered to stay and help. The Galactic Council passed new laws requiring mutual defense between member species. The Krath Dominion, humiliated and weakened, retreated to its own borders and troubled no one for generations. A monument was built on the steps of the rebuilt council chambers on Valoria Prime. It showed a human soldier standing beside a Valorian civilian, both facing forward toward an uncertain future. The inscription at the base was written in every language in the galaxy. When all hope was lost, they came. When none would stand, they stood. When we had nothing left, they gave everything. Ambassador Theron spoke at the dedication ceremony. He was older now, with more white in his hair and more lines on his face, but his voice was strong. "We sent a message into the darkness," he said, "and the humans answered. They did not know us, they owed us nothing, but they came anyway, because that is who they are. They came because they believe that every life has value, that every people deserve freedom, that every cry for help deserves a response. In coming here, they did not just save our world, they showed us, and the entire galaxy, what courage truly means." Admiral Cortez stood in the crowd, wearing her dress uniform and the medals she had earned over a long career. She did not smile during the ceremony. She was thinking about the names on the casualty list. 647 humans who would never go home. 647 families who would never see their loved ones again. But she also thought about the millions of Valorians who were still alive because of those sacrifices. She thought about the children who would grow up free. She thought about the future that now seemed possible because a few thousand humans had decided to do the right thing. After the ceremony, Cortez walked through the streets of the rebuilt Aethon. The crystal towers were being restored, piece by piece. Valorians walked beside humans, talking and laughing together. Children played in parks that had been battlefields just weeks ago. She found Captain Reyes sitting on a bench overlooking the city. His arm was in a sling, and bandages covered half his face, but he was alive. Beside him sat Kira, the young Valorian woman who had ended the war. "Beautiful sunset," Cortez said, sitting down beside them. Reyes nodded. "I have seen a lot of sunsets on a lot of worlds, but this one feels different." "It is a free sunset," Kira said. "That makes it more beautiful." They sat together and watched the twin suns sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. The war was over. The tide had turned, and somewhere out there, across the vast reaches of space, other species were watching and learning. The humans had shown them what was possible. They had shown them that a few determined people could change the course of history. They had shown them that hope was never truly lost, not as long as someone was willing to fight for it. And the galaxy would never forget. The Valorian civilization had stood for 12,000 years. Their cities were made of crystal that caught the light of their twin suns and turned it into rainbows. Their people spent their days creating art, writing poetry, and studying the secrets of the universe. They had no army. They had no weapons. They had never known war. In all their long history, they had never needed to fight anyone. When the Krath Dominion came, the Valorians did not understand what was happening at first. The Krath warships filled the sky like a dark cloud, blocking out the light of both suns. There were hundreds of them, massive vessels of black metal covered in weapons. The Valorians stood in their beautiful streets and looked up at the ships with confusion in their eyes. They did not know what warships were. They did not know what an invasion looked like. They stood 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin and 4 arms that ended in sharp claws. Their eyes were red and filled with hunger for power. They had conquered 40 worlds before Valoria Prime, and they had never lost a battle. To them, the peaceful Valorians were nothing but easy prey. Warlord Draven commanded the Krath fleet. He was the most feared warrior in 3 star systems. He looked down at the crystal cities of Valoria Prime and smiled a cruel smile. This world would fall in days, maybe hours. The Valorians had no way to fight back. They were like children waiting to be taken. In the capital city of Aethon, a young Valorian woman named Kira watched the dark ships descend from the sky. She was 20 years old, with silver skin and large purple eyes, like all her people. He was a historian who had spent his life studying the records of the galaxy. "What are they doing?" Kira asked, as Krath soldiers began marching through the streets. The soldiers pushed Valorians aside. They broke windows and kicked down doors. They laughed as the peaceful people ran from them in fear. "They are conquering us," her father said quietly. His voice was sad, but not surprised. He had read about such things in old records. He knew that not all species in the galaxy were peaceful like his own people. The craft began herding Valorians into large groups. Anyone who moved too slowly was struck with electric rods. Anyone who tried to run was shot down without mercy. The screams of the innocent filled the air of Aethon for the first time in its long history. Ambassador Theron of the Galactic Council worked desperately in his office that day. He was an old Valorian with white hair and tired eyes. He had served on the Council for 50 years, building friendships with species from across the galaxy. Now he called on those friendships for help. His first transmission went to the Centauri Collective. The Centauri were powerful and had a large fleet. But their response came quickly, and it was not what Theron hoped for. "We must remain neutral," the Centauri leader said. "We cannot risk war with the Craft Dominion. We are sorry for your people." Theron tried the Morduan Empire next. The Morduan were warriors themselves. Surely they would help. But the Morduan Emperor shook his head on the view screen. "The Craft are too strong. If we fight them, they will turn their fleet toward our worlds next. We cannot help you. You must face this alone." The Celestine Federation said they were too far away. The Ranthian Alliance said they did not have enough ships. The Gorvon Republic said it was not their concern. One by one, every great power in the galaxy turned away from the Valorians. Theron sat in his chair, with his head in his hands. Outside his window, he could see smoke rising from the city. He could hear the sounds of his people crying. The Krath were destroying everything his civilization had built over thousands of years, and no one in the galaxy cared enough to stop them. In the streets below, Kira and her father were pushed into a group of other Valorians. Krath soldiers surrounded them with weapons ready. A Krath officer walked among the prisoners, looking at them like they were animals. "You will all be taken to work camps," the officer announced. "You will serve the Dominion. Those who obey will live. Those who resist will die. This is your only warning." Kira felt tears running down her face. She had never known fear like this before. Her whole life, she had felt safe. Her whole life, she had believed that the galaxy was a good place, full of good people. Now she understood that she had been wrong. Her father put his arm around her. "There is still hope," he whispered. "How can you say that?" Kira asked. "No one is coming to help us. The whole galaxy has abandoned us." Her father looked up at the sky, past the dark Krath ships, toward the distant stars. "I have read about a species," he said quietly. "They are new to the galaxy. They come from a small blue world far away. They call themselves humans." "I have never heard of them," Kira said. "Few have. They only joined the Galactic Council 60 years ago. They are young, and their fleet is small." Her father paused. "But the records say something strange about them. They are soft and caring, but also fierce and dangerous. They have a history of fighting impossible battles. And they have a strange habit of helping those who cannot help themselves. Why would strangers help us when our own allies will not?" Her father had no answer for that. In orbit above Valoria Prime, Warlord Draven broadcast his ultimatum to the entire planet. His voice boomed from every speaker in every city. "You have 3 solar cycles to surrender completely. Give us your leaders. Give us your resources. Give us everything. If you do not, we will burn your capital city to ash. Every man, woman, and child in Aethon will die. This is not a threat. This is a promise." Ambassador Theron heard the ultimatum and knew he had only one chance left. He sat down at his transmission console and began typing a message. It was a desperate plea for help, sent to a species he had never met, in a part of the galaxy he had never visited. He did not expect a response. He did not expect anyone to come, but he sent the message anyway, because it was all he could do. The message traveled across 47 light-years of space, past countless stars and planets, until it reached a small diplomatic station called New Geneva. And there, in an office overlooking the blue and green world called Earth, a woman named Admiral Lisa Cortez began to read.